Oh, and I told you to get out here early. You took me serious.
Well, absolutely. I'm out here before we have a heat index to deal with today to get some pictures of this label on the engine, because I know you're not going to let me out here later when it's hot.
Amen to that.
Hi, I'm Russ. I'm rebuilding a 1977 Mobile Traveler motorhome. This is all about the MT and me. So, last week, during the garage sale that we had, one of our customers, Johnny, was looking at the MT. He's a mechanic, and he pointed out that there's some information on this label that's on the valve cover of Pearl that could come in handy. Johnny was thinking maybe this engine had been set up for propane fueling.
Which is not uncommon for a 70s engine.
Apparently not. It got pretty popular then. Nowadays, of course, I think propane probably costs as much or more than gas, so you wouldn't accomplish too much. But back then, propane was a lot cheaper, and so there were some pretty common for such conversions to be made. Well, after consulting with my gnome mechanic Glenn, we decided probably not in this case. There's a fuel tank, there's an electric fuel pump, and despite the fact that we've had to modify the carburetor to fit this manifold, probably it's just a different style carburetor, one made for the smaller engine rather than this one. So we're going to go ahead and go on the assumption that this engine was running on gasoline, because everything indicates that it was. The propane idea is interesting though, and it does mention propane on this label, which I think has something to do with the emission standards for the motor. But the label is kind of a bluish green ink on white, and it's about that big, so my old eyes can't read it, so we're trying to get some...
Neither can this camera.
Trying to get some pictures of it here, because we tried filming it and that didn't work. It wouldn't focus. So I'm trying to see if I can get some pictures on the phone that we can take and maybe blow up and actually read this label. If this doesn't work, my only option is going to be to actually take this valve cover off and get some shots of this label, or try to read it on there as it is. It's upside down, for one thing, since it's designed to be read from the front of the engine, and I'm at the back of the engine here in this van. So it's a little thing, but I'd really like to know what this information says. So I'm going to take a few more pictures, see if that works. If not, we'll come back again and get the valve cover off. But it's already starting to warm up out here. We got out here and it was what, 75 degrees?
75, yeah.
I can feel it getting hotter now. The sun's getting higher in the air. It's actually about to get in my face here as we film. So we're not going to be much longer here. I'm going to take a couple...
This says it's 82.
Wow, really? Yeah. 5 degrees in half an hour. So
yeah.
I'm going to take a couple more pictures, and we're going to shut down for right now.
Okay.
All right.
And you know, the beauty of being dyslexic is that you can read upside down. So if you need me to, I can read that label for you.
Good, because I can't. Alright. I think I've got plenty of pictures. Now I just have to go see what they look like. Yeah.
Okay, so what were you just laughing about?
Okay, so I'm looking through my service manual, because I noticed on this label it says it's talking about tuning up the engine and the settings and how to do it. And it says, see the service manual for detailed instructions. Well, guess what? I have a service manual. So I'm looking under emissions control, and on page 2511, look what's on it. That's what I'm laughing at. That is the label right there. And it appears to be identical to the one that's on the engine.
The one you have just spent the last week trying to be able
That's
to read.
right. There's even the light duty California label on the next page. I'm not worried about it. We're not in California. Thank goodness.
Oh.
High altitude light duty engine and exhaust emission control information.
All right. Well, I am going to cut this off and let you read.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Engine exhaust emission control information. Mixture setting. Use a tachometer and adjustable flow rate supply of propane. Disconnect choke diaphragm hose at carburetor base and connect propane supply hose to exposed nipple. Adjust propane flow rate to achieve highest engine speed. With propane flow, adjust idle speed screwed to the proper F reading RPM. Readjust the propane flow to obtain highest speed. Readjust idle speed to F RPM. Turn off propane flow and adjust the idle mixture screws to achieve the smoothest idle from the D list RPM. Then reconnect choke diaphragm hose. Make all adjustments with engine fully warmed up, transmission in neutral, headlights off, and air conditioning compressor not operating. And then it says, see service manual for detailed instructions. That's what I'm doing, seeing the service manual.
So that's what's on the label then?
That's what is on, that's what that fine print on the label says, yes. And the charts give you the D and F RPM for every model engine from the 225 all the way through the 440. So.
All right. So, it is still absolutely gorgeous out here. You're in a lot of shadow, but it is beautiful.
Yeah, well, I'm in shadow because that's where it's beautiful. You get in the sun, you feel the heat. So, you know, whenever you bought this book for me, you said that everything I ever needed to know about Pearl would be in it. And as I thumbed through it, I would see stuff and think, nah, I'll never need that information. But more and more I'm discovering that anything I need to know is in this book.
And I'm telling you, Jordy was right.
That's right.
Take a look, it's in a book.
Take a look, it's in a book. So yes, the exact label that I need is in the book. And what it talks about here is a method of setting the idle speed using propane. That's where propane comes into this on the label. You attach, as I understand it here anyway, you attach a small propane bottle like you would use on a torch, you know. You attach that to the part of the carburetor, anyway, somewhere on there, and you set the idle speed with it, with kind of a tweaking back and forth. But anyway, the whole procedure is described in this book, you know, and it is called the Propane Assisted Idle Speed Adjustment. So that's what the word propane is on that label for. The rest of the label has information on exactly what kind of timings and settings you place it in order to get the emission system functioning. And that's all in the emission systems part of this book. In fact, that whole propane idle adjustment is on page 2514 in the emissions control section, which I should note is right at the dead end, tail end of the book. It is the last section besides the index that's in there. While I was looking at that, I got to looking at this entire emissions section. You may remember a few videos back I was talking about the fact that I had seen some of the 360 LA engines in pictures and diagrams that had that large diaphragm round thing sitting on top of the right cylinder head cover, and had vacuum hoses going to it. Well, I found that in here too. That is indeed a vacuum amplifier. It apparently is part of the EGR, the exhaust gas recirculation system. Now, this is something I need to determine if it was ever on Pearl or not. This is part of emissions control. In the 70s, they were
starting to implement all of this. So from one year to the next, sometimes within a model year, you would actually have different additions, different parts of the emission system that would appear on engines. So I've got to dig a little deeper and look at some of the other parts of that system to see if they are on Pearl and if I need to see about hooking up the EGR system again. It involves a lot of vacuum hoses and a lot of sensors, and right now there's no evidence that that was ever on Pearl. However, remember, Pearl's original owner was himself a mechanic, and it was not uncommon back in the 70s to get a vehicle and for someone who had the know-how to strip a lot of that exhaust emission control system off of their vehicle because you could get better gas mileage without it, and a mechanic just might have done that. So there's a lot of questions that still remain, a lot of things to still look into in trying to get Pearl running again. Plus, I really need to look at some of the modern emission standards and see how much I need to be sure she meets those from a legal aspect and also from the ecological aspect. I want her to be running as cleanly as possible for the sake of the environment.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I was getting ready to fuss at you. Ooh! We definitely want her to be as eco-friendly as possible.
We love our green earth and we want to keep it that way, okay? And we don't want to contribute to this global warming any more than is necessary, because heaven knows we're getting a good dose of global warming this summer here in the Arklanis area. So, anyway. So, the label mystery is solved. Pearl did not run on propane. She is a gasoline engine, and thank you, Glenn, for confirming that whenever I talk to you. So we will proceed with our plan of mounting the carburetor and getting it hooked up to burn gasoline. Not going to do that today because it's too darn hot. And I don't have everything I need anyway. And there's still some more research that has to be done on the EGR system, and there's a couple of other emission systems that I've got to familiarize myself with and just see if they're going to apply to operating Pearl. In the meantime, like I said, we get the carburetor mounted, figure out a fuel supply for it, get some basic vacuum hoses hooked up, get the starter back on the engine, and then get the radiator back on, and after all that, and an oil change, we might be able here before the summer's over to turn the key and see if she works.
That would be very nice.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear that engine running by the end of the summer. That would be nice.
That would.
Yeah. But it's not going to happen today. So,
if this heat stays like it is, you need to be realistic about the fact that you may not be able to get out here and work on it.
this is very true. It's another hot day today, and right now our forecast is looking like high temperatures, and I'm talking real temps, of at least 96 to 98 degrees all next week.
99 on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, we get 99. And in this kind of weather, whenever we have a temperature in the upper 90s, you can bet the heat index is going to be somewhere between 106 and 112, depending on what the humidity level is. And yeah, that's just way too hot to get out here and try to work. So, latest projections are saying this will probably last through the rest of the month. So we may have to wait until August gets here in order to get some slightly cooler temperatures. Time will tell.
Yeah. I think they're going to be watching this in August.
Well, if it is August, then I'll let you know in a week or two if it's cooled off. We have a 1 to 2 week delay on these things, so we have to work in the future, you know.
Yeah.
So,
well,
anyway.
And we've got to make the new opener.
That's
the
right.
New trailer.
The new trailer. We've mentioned, I think, a couple of times here that we've got a new trailer in the works. Stand by for that. It will be coming up.
Yes.
but not for this video anyway. We're going to put the wraps on it. Kind of short again, I know, but hey, like I said last week, you can blame global warming. And one very happy bird up there.
Actually, it's a whole... Hang on. Let's see if I can get the camera to... Oh, and of course they all flew off.
They all fly off.
Little bitty, teeny, tiny sparrows.
I don't know if they were chattering happily at each other or fussing with each other. I don't speak sparrow. So, anyway, we'll leave that to them. And we're going to leave this with you for this week anyway, and kind of shut things down once again before it gets ridiculously hot out here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't.
What is wrong with you?
Something's attacking my ear. Ah. Say, sorry about that. Sounded like an airplane in my ear. You know.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I moved the camera. I'm sorry.
Okay. What were we? Where were we? I'm lost.
You were closing out. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Well, on that note, that's going to be it for this week. Sorry, my ear is still buzzing. I'm Russ. Reed's behind the camera, and we'll talk later.
So that was so funny. Because you were all serious, and then all of a sudden you were dancing.
Don't know what it was, but it was loud.